students come out of high school with some very advanced computer skills.
You betcha they do.
And, they're looking for ways to apply that. And I know in my case, kids and nieces and nephews, they got into robotics in high school.
Oh, yeah.
Where they're writing their own software, creating the controller and putting it into the robotics. And they're just not, they're not apprehensive about it. Like, some of the older learners might have been, or might still are.
Yeah.
It's just natural for them to use the computers and the technology. So the faster that we can bridge that to what's actually happening mechanically, the faster that you have a tech or a project manager that's out there doing these startups or service where they understand the full system.
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for joining Did You Know, the ESCO HVAC podcast. So we spend a lot of time talking about training opportunities within our industry, and we really need to focus on what technologies are coming to the industry, what resources we have, and ways that we can do more hands-on training in the classrooms on these new technologies. So we are spending time with Chris Army from Johnson Controls. How are you doing, sir?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So here at Johnson Controls, we are at the Ducted Systems Academy, and we're spending time looking at all the products from our smaller RTUs, we've got residential, all the way up into our larger, more advanced package units that have advanced heat recovery for dehumidification. We've got VFDs for compressors and fan motors. We have a variety of new technologies, and many of our educators are looking for training resources. We have Generation Z, we have Generation Alpha. When we think about these two generations, we think Gen Z is very much a curious generation. Gen Alpha are looking for ways that they can, make a difference in the world. They've grown up with climate change and global warming, and they're looking for ways that they can make changes to the world. And I know for myself, our field is really an enjoyable field. It's very hands-on, and the more hands-on you get, the better off that experience is. So let's talk about ways that Johnson Controls is helping the industry with hands-on training.
Yeah. That's a great question. I think back a little bit on my career and how, things used to be when you had to learn the trade. And a lot of times it was you tag along with somebody for a lot of years.
Yeah.
And learn things. So
I do this, you listen.
Exactly. Yeah. And if you're lucky, you get to do
something you might do.
Exactly. And, now, like you say, there's so much more technology available to the newer generations. And I think it's fantastic, in their ability to really combine the use of computer technology with the use of trades.
Yeah.
When I started, you didn't have a computer anywhere near an HVAC unit.
Not at all.
So, the fact that a lot of that is integrated now, and it's important for somebody that works on HVAC units to really understand computers as well, because of the fact that it's integrated into the systems themselves. So it's a much higher talent level than we would have had, 30 years ago, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm the same way. So, I grew up in refrigeration and air conditioning. I ended up getting into building automations just because I was interested in it. I knew it was something that was changing my industry. And so I kind of made a place for myself learning new technologies. And it served me very well. But at the time, there wasn't a lot of us that enjoyed that.
Right.
There wasn't a whole lot of geek technicians out there.
Yeah.
But that's changing.
Absolutely. And changing rapidly.
Because if we look at the technology, at that time, I had to learn the mechanical skills and then later had to learn technology that integrated with those skills. Well, now we're bringing in young students that know technology better than we do.
Yes.
And then we're going, hey, by the way, we got to teach you these mechanical skills, and it's got all these electronics and these controls, and you can monitor them remotely, and where do we begin? I'm going to start you with the very, very basic fundamental stuff. And some of our younger generation is like, why don't you at least show me the other things that are out there, and then I can come back and learn these things. And so sometimes it really is important to get their hands on the technology. We may not teach it to them all at the beginning, but to be able to take someone up in front of a piece of equipment that has pressure transducers and temperature thermistors and go, okay, we're going to teach you how to look at systems with manifold gauges and temperature, readings. But first, let me show you what they look like when you don't have to do that. And you can pull it up on your computer or your tablet or your mobile device, and we can look at this thing running live, non-evasively.
Right. Right. So being able to use that technology to learn the whole process inside of what's happening in the rooftops.
You bet.
Or, any equipment. Chiller equipment's the same thing these days. Air handlers, same. So having that ability to take your understanding of, maybe the computer side of it, but applying that to learning how mechanically the systems work, and it's streamlined. You can learn it a lot faster than understanding maybe the mechanical and then having to learn the computer. Well, at least that's how it was for a while. But now, students come out of high school with some very advanced computer skills.
You betcha they do.
And, they're looking for ways to apply that. And I know in my case, kids and nieces and nephews, they got into robotics in high school.
Oh, yeah.
Where they're writing their own software, creating the controller and putting it into the robotics. And, I think about that a lot when I think about what we're able to put in a rooftop now, and the ability that, they're just not, they're not apprehensive about it. Like, some of the older learners might have been, or might still are.
Yeah.
It's just natural for them to use the computers and the technology. So the faster that we can bridge that to what's actually happening mechanically, the faster that you have a tech or a project manager that's out there doing these startups or service where they understand the full system.
So I think about educators. I think about myself, right? Coming out of the field, going into the classroom, we've had to learn new tools like PowerPoint and spreadsheets and things that we didn't do in the field. We even had to learn soft skills. We had to learn how to communicate with people, and it was not an easy thing. So when I think about the transition with technology and I see this facility, I think about the educators that are going, well, you know what? I really need to implement this equipment and technology into my program, but I'm not comfortable myself. Is there a place that I can go where I can actually get my hands on a piece of equipment that has the technology and learn how they work hand in hand so that I can, in return, go back to the classroom and teach this?
Yeah, so we have some great programs for folks to do just that, where, we have a program called Train the Trainer that not only helps people on our residential side understand what they should be teaching on the product, which is important.
Oh, yeah.
But also, how do you stand up in front of a class and facilitate the class?
That's a different story.
Yes, and that might be a skill that they're just not comfortable with.
Oh, yeah.
So we give them a chance to practice that and a chance to develop those softer skills on how you convey that information, and how, when you go out into the lab and you're working on equipment, how do you coach your learners through some of that? Because in any class that we do, students come here with a variety of experiences, a variety of knowledge. And, part of the balance is, how do you teach somebody that doesn't have that knowledge at the same time that you're teaching the knowledgeable ones? So having all the variety of equipment that we have to work on and the variety of courses really helps them be able to do that.
Yeah, I'm sure that it is. We start thinking about ways that we learn. Most technicians who have become educators are hands-on learners.
Yep.
And so we're teaching a hands-on curriculum, really.
Yeah.
We always have our classroom time that we have to present, the fundamentals of what we're going to do, but then implement the class time. And especially with our younger generations, we're starting to see a lot more project-based education and not just the technical trades. But a lot of schools are realizing that if you can teach someone the principles, but then allow them to actually get their hands on it, then they grasp that concept a lot better. And so I see that as a way of learning the hands-on practices for a classroom, because you have so many different pieces of equipment here, and instructors might come in and go, well, I'll never have anything that large that I'll be teaching, but there's a lot of things around here that I could be teaching. And so now I need to learn, what are these hands-on practices? So can you tell me a little bit about the programs? Like, what does a training program look like here at Johnson Controls?
Sure. That's a great question, Clifton. I think, for the equipment courses that we teach, the product courses, it does start off in the classroom with, some of the basic concepts.
Yeah.
Because you got to have the basics. If you don't have the basics, then it becomes more difficult. But because of the sophistication of the controllers in many of these on the commercial side, they spend time in the classroom working with that controller before they go out and actually work on the equipment. So they understand the software configuration, they understand what the controller does. So they get that time in practice.
Sure.
Where, you're not going to blow up a machine because you're doing something.
That's right. But we only want to let the smoke out as a last resort.
Exactly. Spoken like a true building automation guy. Yeah. So, that practice is great because then when they come out into the lab itself, and we have some specific exercises that the students do based on the tonnage range in the unit itself.
Right.
Because, as they go up in the tonnage range, there's a lot more features.
True.
A lot more things to learn.
Yeah, a lot more add-ons.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Even if a trainer, that's doing their own courses maybe doesn't have a piece of equipment with that sophistication on it, that doesn't mean that tomorrow it won't.
Yeah, that's so true.
So, some of the innovative things that we've done with our rooftops, it's good to learn it anyway because chances are you're going to see it down the road.
Eventually.
Yep.
So besides the hands-on learning, I've also seen some online learning opportunities that are available here as well.
Yeah. The development, and some of this really escalated during the COVID years.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
When we couldn't get people here to the lab.
Yeah.
So we did lab streaming. We did e-courses, that still exist on our platforms for students to come in and learn. We have what's called Academy TV, which is part of our Navigator system. So, if you are a sponsor or product of our dealer of our products, you have access to those. And what Academy TV is very specific subjects. It might be how to set the pressure on a gas valve.
Oh, yeah.
It might be, some parameter in the controller or tying into it. And our residential technical support team, our residential instructors, our commercial instructors all do a great job with recording these videos based on what people ask for. Here's what we need to help us do our job.
You bet.
And, you asked me earlier about the different generations.
Yeah.
YouTube, which is what I think Academy TV, I call it YouTube for ducted systems.
Sure. Yeah.
It's a great way. People will watch a 10-minute video or even a half-hour video before they'll sit in a classroom for 4 or 5 days.
So true.
So, we have that resource available to them. And one that I think, as we're talking about generations and how learning looks, when you think about, VR, that's some industries are using that.
Yeah, it's emerging into our industry. We have a variety of different folks that show up to our conference to teach HVAC technologies in VR, and some programs adopt it quickly. Some are very hesitant to adopt it.
Yeah, we've done a little bit with it. It's extremely expensive to develop.
It is.
But, you can watch videos on YouTube of car mechanics doing a brake job on a Porsche or something like that. That's the concept that I think, we might see a lot more of that in the future because while it's expensive to deploy, if you're looking to ramp up your students that need that bridge between, they want the really cool technical stuff.
Right.
But they also need the mechanical stuff.
Yeah.
And they're used to watching YouTube, when they want to learn how to play guitar.
Yeah.
They watch YouTube to play guitar.
That's how I learned how to build a guitar.
There you go.
I watched a whole bunch of videos, and one day I went, all right, do woodworking. I think I can actually do this. And so many of us learn that way.
Yeah. So I think you're going to see some evolution of that as we go forward. And I think it's a great way to get younger students in particular really involved in this trade.
Yeah, I start looking at the way that the world is adapting and realize that our HVAC is always a little bit behind other industries as far as technology goes, but not very far. And especially the way that technology is evolving and causing society to look at technology differently. Even in our own industry, I do believe we're going to be utilizing a lot more virtual reality, augmented reality, and in some ways, artificial intelligence. It's starting to creep into our industry in many ways. A lot of it is in content, but when we start thinking about training and ways that we can use artificial intelligence to look at training from a digital aspect, I think it's going to end up changing some of the ways that we look at training. Have you seen any artificial intelligence creeping into the equipment or into training at all?
That's a great question, because we know it's coming.
Yeah.
Right. And certainly we don't really know a lot of what the definition of that's going to look like down the road because it's an evolving technology. However, where we've seen it probably deployed pretty successfully is helping in either developing some of the basic skill sets where, when a student shows up to class, you want them to maybe have some of the basics already down.
Do you know how to use a pair of pliers?
Right.
Do you know what is a Phillip and what is not? They seem like silly questions, but they're not.
No, it's very valid, when the learners get here. So, even on up to things like the refrigeration cycle and some of the basic components of a rooftop and all that, AI can really help, from that perspective, help a learner not only learn and understand it, but also test them for the skill knowledge.
Right, the accuracy.
The
learned outcome.
Yeah. Now, taking that a step further, when, you're looking at the sales side of things, there's a lot of soft skills that we teach with salespeople here through the Ducted Systems Academy. And, AI can be used to help that skill development as well as coaching and mentoring salespeople.
Absolutely.
When you think about a competitive analysis, AI can help with that. AI can help with really just preparing any aspect of training that we have, with the possible exception of the hands-on.
Right, absolutely.
AI can tell you how to adjust a gas valve.
Right.
AI cannot adjust the gas valve for you right now.
Right now. We haven't developed the automation combination, but someday, I'm sure. There's still nothing like that hands-on interaction.
Absolutely.
And I agree. I think we're going to see a lot more of that developing. And when we start looking at the curriculum in a classroom and we start looking at ways of implementing new technologies, what are some ways that educators or contractors can make connections with Johnson Controls and learn about the Ducted Systems Academy?
One way is just to go to the ductedsystemsacademy.com website, where we list a lot of the courses. When you think about a contractor who maybe needs to develop some technicians.
Yes.
We offer what's called Tech Foundry, which is a 10-week program.
Oh, really?
It's, an hour and a half or 2 hours a week for the 9 weeks. And then it's live here
in-house
at
class.
the Ducted Systems Academy, where the technician who, the extent of their skill set earlier might have been just changing filters or, cleaning, the units, things like that. Now you're starting to get them more in the understanding of what all is in the unit, how the unit works, what's the refrigeration cycle, the real basics.
You bet.
That, previously you'd have to take a course in that might last 6 months.
Right.
We can bring them up to speed online, through Teams in 10 weeks and give them some really strong skill sets so that the contractor, and it really works two ways. The technician learns the skills, which is great, but then you have, the contractor now has a technician that has those skills.
Right.
And can help develop them quickly.
It's a great business model.
Absolutely.
So you're really helping the contractor become more efficient. It's a service to the contractor to help develop their technician for them. And that's part of the reason that I'm investigating these kind of training programs. A lot of people don't know that these training programs are here by the manufacturers.
Yeah.
They don't realize that they can actually come and get their hands on live, functioning, brand new equipment, sometimes very large pieces of equipment that you won't find in too many classrooms. We've had the conversation, about ways that Johnson Controls works with educational programs, and many educational programs couldn't even fit the pieces of equipment that Johnson Controls would like for them to be working on. And so this is an outreach for a school. This is an outreach for an educator to be able to actually go to the facility and spend some time with the pieces of equipment themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, we've had companies talk to us about some of our curriculum, as far as being able to use it in their curriculum.
Sure.
We've even had, a couple of states approach us, that are looking for ways to work with their vocational schools inside the state.
Yeah.
So we're talking to them about curriculum and what we can leverage.
Yeah. A lot of the state energy offices are now looking at the industry going, okay, industry, we need to upskill everyone. And so whether you're an educator, whether you're a contractor, technician, we all have new things that we're going to have to learn. We are all a part of the global effort to, you can look at it any way you want to. It really comes down to everyone will appreciate the fact that we are becoming more energy efficient, right? There's many other aspects to our industry that you could debate on whether it is or is not one thing or another. But when it comes down to efficiency, there's no denying that our industry as a whole, HVAC and refrigeration, are all focusing on becoming more efficient. I always reference back to the automotive industry back in the 1990s. We took a carbureted engine that had mechanical timing and had a points distributor, and we needed to make it more efficient. We didn't really reinvent the internal combustion engine. We just used controls, inputs, outputs, and algorithms to make it more efficient. And when we look at the transition that we're going through right now in our industry, that's really what we're doing. Yes, we've redesigned some compressors, but they're still internal compression machines, vapor compression engines. And we're still really not changing the refrigeration cycle. We're just making it more efficient.
Exactly.
But in the process, there's a learning curve for all of us. So I highly encourage our educators to reach out, learn a little bit more about the programs, learn about the opportunities to do hands-on training at a factory facility that has curriculum that can be brought back to the classroom, and lifelong partnerships to make sure that you're continuing your education on new technologies right here with Johnson Controls.
Yeah, fantastic. I love it.
All right. Well, we appreciate your time today, sir, and we thank you very much for it.
Oh, thanks for having me, Clifton. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.